For nearly 3 years, Courtney Clenney has woken up wondering if today will be the day that she will see freedom or face more time and life in prison. Hi, I'm Holly Mae Cormier, author of Memphis, a character-driven women's fiction thriller exploring domestic abuse, deception, and survival. Today, we're revisiting a case that continues to disturb, not just because of what happened, but because of how violence, obsession, and power blurred into something deadly. I am a little bit under the weather today. I'm very sick with a cold, so I may be publishing this video a little bit late, but I am going to do my hardest to speak clearly and get the story out there. It's very important. So, why this case still matters. So, when I first covered this case a few months ago, I was very, very new to creating content for YouTube. I didn't even know how to put a background behind my images, to be honest with you. So, I do want to give a little bit of an update on the case and also present it a lot more aesthetically than I did the first time around. So one thing that these two had in common was mutual violence. It really was a fight that went too far. But time has passed, evidence has surfaced, patterns have become clear. And when you strip away the luxury condo and the OnlyFans fame, you're left with something far more uncomfortable. This was a psychological escalation. Entitlement and emotional dependency collided until one person didn't survive. And unfortunately, that was Christian. So let's give a little bit of a recap. Not the myth, but the dynamic. Courtney Clenney was a social media personality and an OnlyFans model. Christian was her boyfriend. What the public saw online was curated intimacy. So police reports describe repeated domestic disturbance calls, screaming, physical violence, physical altercations, and fear. Video evidence later showed Courtney striking Christian, sometimes repeatedly, and that matters. Not because it proves motive, but because it establishes a pattern of power deregulation. This relationship wasn't about love, it was about proximity without safety, and it was about obsession without regulation. So on the day that Christian was killed, Courtney claims that she threw a knife in self-defense. She says that she feared for her life. But here's the psychological fracture point. Fear does not usually manifest as precision. Fear is chaotic. It's reactive. Throwing a knife with enough force to strike the chest is not an instinctual panic. It requires intent, distance, judgment, and follow through. That doesn't automatically mean premeditation, but it does complicate the narrative. I want to talk about the aftermath a little bit now. So, disassociation or entitlement? That is the question. So, after Christian's death, Courtney was seen partying, traveling, and continuing life. Some of her supporters argue that was her way of a trauma response, and everybody deals with grief differently. It could have been disassociation and shock, but here's what psychology asks instead. What kind of trauma response aligns with repeated aggression before the incident? Disassociation doesn't erase patterns, it exposes them. What we see instead is something closer to emotional entanglement, a belief that intensity equals justification, that chaos equals innocence. Some of the latest updates and what has shifted in the case. So Courtney Clenney remains charged with second-degree murder. Her defense continues to argue self-defense, but prosecutors have emphasized prior violence and the absence of immediate danger at the moment of Christian's killing. What's changed is also the public conversation. This case is no longer about gender alone. It's about accountability inside volatile relationships. Whether you're a man or a woman, you have to be held accountable to your behavior if you choose to stay in that chaos and continually let things escalate in the relationship. instead of walking away or choosing to change outcomes by changed behaviors. So, to understand where this case stands now, we have to leave the courtroom and step inside the place where Courtney Clenney has spent nearly every day since August of 2022. Turner Guilford Knight Correctional Center is not just a county jail, it's Miami-Dade's most secure detention facility. Now, this is where high-profile and or high-risk offenders are housed. Now, when Courtney arrived, she wasn't processed quietly. She was immediately classified as a high-profile inmate. And that red jumpsuit you've seen in court photos, that's not symbolic. It marks inmates who require heightened security, constant monitoring, and restricted movement. So for over 900 days, Courtney Clenney has woken up in the same concrete cell, recycled air, fluorescent lights, a rigid schedule that never changes. Boring. And unlike sentenced prisoners, she has no timeline. Death row inmates know their fate. They may be waiting, but the end is defined. They can begin the psychological process of acceptance. Courtney Clenney lives in something far worse: uncertainty. Court dates are scheduled and then postponed. Motions are filed, argued, delayed, and each delay means more time in that cell. More time watching her former life dissolve into something unreachable. Pretrial detention doesn't just confine the body, it suspends the mind. During her bond hearing, Courtney Clenney posed too great of a flight risk to be released. And here's the irony: the very success that defined her life is now the reason that she remains incarcerated. Prosecutors argued that given her wealth earned through online platforms meant that she had the financial means to flee the country. Fame didn't protect her, it trapped her. The image that once gave her power now works against her at every turn. So studies consistently show that pretrial detainees suffer higher rates of anxiety, depression, and cognitive decline than convicted prisoners. Why? Because the human psyche needs certainty to survive. Even bad certainty is better than none. Sentenced inmates can orient themselves around a timeline. They adapt. Pretrial inmates cannot. They exist in this a psychological limbo or a psychological suspension, unable to accept their reality, yet unable to escape it. And then there's the loss of identity. So Courtney Clenney built her entire sense of self around visibility, attention, control, and desire. But inside the prison that she's been housed at, she controls nothing. When to speak, every action is a command. And the fame that once elevated her now isolates her. Other inmates know who she is. Guards recognize her. There is no escape from the self that she used to be. So even her family hasn't been spared. Both of her parents were arrested and briefly held in the same facility on charges related to unauthorized computer access of Christian's laptop. Imagine that. Parents detained in the same walls as their daughter. This is another layer of trauma stacked onto an already fractured family system. So outside those walls, the world moved on. Followers found new influencers. The algorithm forgot her. The digital empire that once sustained her identity no longer exists. Inside Turner Guilford Knight, she is no longer Courtney Taylor, influencer. She is simply an inmate. So here we are, nearly 3 years later, no end date in sight. Her trial keeps getting postponed. Death row inmates get closure. Courtney Clenney gets endless psychological limbo. And, I didn't do this video for anyone to feel sorry for her. This is what she's going through, but Christian's family attends every single hearing that she has to go to. And they're being dragged through this psychological limbo. Most importantly, the family wants closure. The family needs justice. I mean, that unfolding is just happening at a brutal pace. So this case forces us to confront something very uncomfortable. Victimhood and violence can easily coexist, but they are not interchangeable. You can be harmed and harm at the same time. And when boundaries erode long enough, escalation becomes inevitable. Christian didn't just die from a knife wound. He died inside a relationship where volatility was normalized until it became lethal. Cases like this is why I wrote Memphis, because survival isn't just about leaving, it's about recognizing danger before it becomes fatal. If you're drawn to stories that explore deception and the psychological cost of loving the wrong person, Memphis is available now in audiobook, print, and ebook. Links to purchase my novel are in the description, as well as links to the first video that I posted on Courtney and Christian and the blog article on my website. And if you have found this analysis valuable, please like, subscribe, and share this video because these conversations matter. You can change your life just by educating yourself on the signs. I'm Holly Mae Cormier. Thanks for watching.